If you run a company or manage a team, hiring qualified people quickly can make or break your business. Imagine a position of need going unfilled for weeks or even months because you just can't seem to find the right candidate. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. Indeed sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach the people you want faster. This makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Plus, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts. You only pay for results on your job post. Just in the last minute that I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. Now that is fast. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. Listeners will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/BWN. Go to Indeed.com/BWN right now to support this podcast. Indeed.com/BWN. Terms and conditions apply.
Hello, Mavs fans. Welcome to Pod Maverick After Dark. You're talking to Kirk Henderson and Josh Bowe. It's just before 10 o'clock on Wednesday, January 29th. The Mavericks are about to start a win streak? Question mark? They've won 2 games in a row. They just held off the New Orleans Pelicans in a really baffling basketball game where the Mavericks managed to score 80 points in the second half, yet only win by 1.
Yeah.
This is going to be a fun one to talk about because if you want to be on it, I wrote this as my final bullet point to the Mavs Moneyball recap, right? I said, you just have to win games. I don't care how you do it. I don't really care if it's ugly. Just win the game. We'll figure out the rest later. This is they're slapping stuff together right now. And they just need to they need wins. I mean, they have 8 games left until the All-Star break. And right now, if they they're 4 games above 500, this gives them a pretty good chance of heading into All-Star break with a record of 500 or better now. I'm really pleased they won this game tonight.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. That's what your last point was, because literally someone on Twitter, I posted a stat, and we'll get into it, but not to spoiler what we're going to talk about, but it's astounding. The Mavericks had 20 made 3-pointers and 16 offensive rebounds. And I tweeted, I don't know the numbers in front of me, but I have to imagine not a lot of teams lose if they hit 20 made 3-pointers and 16 offensive rebounds. And someone replied, yeah, but they only won by 1. And it's not to pile on random follower or anything on Twitter. But it's guys, the team is missing perhaps the 2 most important players on the roster.
They have played 26 games without Luka Doncic. 26 of 48.
I don't care if New Orleans scored on their own basket at the buzzer for the Mavericks to win by 1. That's, you say thank you and you go out the door. There's, like you said, there's no such thing as ugly wins. Obviously that doesn't mean that if they lose that they're just given a free pass. That's not what we're saying, but you just find way, like you said, you find ways to win. They are a high turnover team since Luka's been out, which is not surprising, and that bit them in the ass again tonight, but they are finding ways to almost play around that and try to lean into the strengths that are left on the roster. It helps that Daniel Gafford is playing much better as a starter, that's for sure, but this was offensively, I mean, this is going to sound crazy. Like, they played an awesome game offensively, other than the 19 turnovers. And most of those turnovers were bad turnovers, not even New Orleans like forcing the issue. But when they weren't giving it away to the team, I mean, they were executing, and the shot making was as good as it's been all season, which is kind of crazy to say without Luka. So they earned it. They earned this win, that's for sure.
I just realized something. So I wrote something incorrect. Let's see here. Hold on. I wrote that Kyrie and Dinwiddie didn't have any turnovers. That's not true. They had 4.
4 each or 4 total?
4 total.
That's not bad.
That's tolerable.
No,
that's
all
tolerable.
the turnovers came because the Pelicans really tried to get the ball out of Kyrie's hands.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot of opportunities for role players to make decisions with the ball in those 4-on-3 situations, or that short roll situation. And PJ, bless his heart, he had career high 7 assists, but he also I think had
8 assists. But he had 5 turnovers.
5, right? Which is just kind of that's gonna kind of happen
in the first quarter where Zion kept taking his lunch money. Like there was PJ got off to a bad start in this game and really turned it around in a major way. I do want to note something before we talk about this game further. This game, depending on which broadcast you were listening to, was emblematic of America right now in terms of 2 different information systems, where you're just getting 2 different information ecosystems, where you have Mark Followell continuing to complain about the previous games 2 weeks ago, mind you, missed call, the missed what do you call it, goaltend. Then on the Pelicans broadcast continually highlighted how amazing of a block it was. And I mean, they were really emphasizing it. I'm not kidding.
That must have been a bid, because I'm pretty sure the Pelicans broadcast.
No, it was part of the early point of that game.
That's
serious.
Funny.
It was wild, man.
That's funny because you say that, because I saw the Pelicans broadcast of when that missed call happened, and they were kind of like, "Oh, got away with one." So the fact that they're now like, are they trolling? I don't know. That's pretty funny.
Well, to kind of continue your point about the offensive basketball here. In 36 minutes, the first quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter, the Mavericks scored 115 points. Then in the second quarter, they sort of died on the vine a little bit. They only scored 22. And if you're watching this game, it really was like your cliched game of runs going on.
Oh, yeah.
Where the Mavericks would do something, the Pelicans would do something in return. Honestly, the Mavericks were pretty lucky that Zion Williamson was on a minutes restriction. And if I'm being, just honest, they're lucky he's still fat and out of shape, because as the game went on, he slowly withered. And it was there was a block by Daniel Gafford. They ended up calling it a foul on a replay where he attacked Gafford at the rim, and Gafford put him on his ass, and he lied there on the floor looking like, a fat kid at camp, being like, "Oh, I'm so tired." It really made me laugh. But he was really good in the first half. He ate the Mavericks lunch when he was attacking the rim.
Yeah, he was very good in the first half. And I think that's kind of how they won the game in the fourth quarter. Was I thought they stretched the floor. They played a little small ball, and they involved him in a lot of actions, forcing him to guard out near the perimeter. And he was okay with it, like you said, in the first half. But I think by the fourth quarter, I think this was a kind of a war of attrition against Zion. I think by the fourth quarter, they kind of wore him out, and they targeted him. I'm going to pull this. I might pull this. I don't know if it's enough to write about after we're done recording, but there was a Clay 3 off a dribble handoff with 2 minutes left, where they just go right after Zion, because Zion's guarding the big, who's, I think it was, I don't know if it was Gafford or PJ, whoever was handing it off to Clay, but whoever was guarding the big doing the handoff, it was Zion guarding it. And Zion looked like he was in cement shoot, like he was not ready for a handoff Clay 3, and his guard gets smushed on the screen, and Zion is nowhere to be found, and Clay cans a 3 that helps seal the game. And I thought that was emblematic of how the Mavericks did a good job attacking Zion in space and stretching him out and forcing him to guard. They forced him to guard from 3-point line to the rim. And when Zion's right, he can do that, because he's that special of an athlete, but obviously, he's still getting back into game shape. And
he had 29 points in 28 minutes.
He was a bowling ball on offense.
I'm being an asshole because it's just this guy is one of the most impressive athletes I've ever seen and it's very clear that he just isn't that into basketball. Like, I mean, do you remember the KP Luka game where they each needed 40 points to beat the Pelicans? Again, man, they're just so good. So the Mavericks ended up playing a pretty decent first half, only to die in the last 2 minutes.
Give up an 18-6 run right before halftime.
18-6 run. Oh, it was brutal. And you go into halftime, you're kind of wondering what's happening. And I'm over here in Garland, and that was when we started to get murdered by the thunderstorm that was rolling through the DFW area.
Yeah.
And it woke up the baby. So I missed most of the third quarter. And so I come back to see, and I'm reading through the game log. It kind of looks like what happened is the Mavericks really got off to a great start, then let the Pelicans back in it, and then closed with a great ending and ended up being, they scored 40 points in the quarter, as I mentioned, to the Pelicans 30, and they sort of swung the game. It was only a four-point lead entering the fourth quarter, but a 10-point swing in a quarter is not bad for these guys that aren't really great at defense. So that was nice to see.
Yeah, and the third quarter was when they finally got their turnovers under control a little bit. I don't have the numbers of how many turnovers they had in the third, but they definitely didn't have as many in the first or second quarter. And they were killing it with their shot making, even in the first half when they had all those. They were still making shots. Mm-hmm. So like the third quarter was like, hey, let's not throw the ball to the team, and they put up a 40-point quarter because they were in their bag with shot making tonight. I mean, the ball was. Again, it's like I feel like I'm like oxymoron, but when they weren't throwing it to the Pelicans, I mean, they were driving, kicking them to death because the Pelicans just absolutely wanted no part of Kyrie after I think he kind of got hot to start the game, and they kind of shifted their coverage to try to get the ball out of his hands, and it worked a little bit. Kyrie still ended up having a good game, but he did like in the first quarter, I thought this was going to be like a 40-point Kyrie game, and the Pelicans were like, nope. And to Kyrie's credit, he moved the ball, trusted his teammates, and for the most part, his teammates came through.
And it was pretty interesting watching this game because, the PJ Washington of it all, he's sort of, and this is obvious to one degree or another, but he's the special sauce when the Mavericks are winning.
Yes. If he's making threes, I mean, his defense, I just realized he had 14 rebounds.
14 rebounds. When he's engaged on the boards, the Mavericks stand a much better chance of winning the game. Like, he had a little finish where I'm pretty sure it was an offensive rebound or kind of a loose ball situation. He got the ball underneath the backboard, like almost, like pretty much on the baseline, underneath the backboard. And he didn't have a dribble, and he like shot faked his way to where he jumped out from underneath the backboard and finished in traffic at the rim. And, the Boston game is going to live in my head for a while because no Maverick was able to get decent looks off at the rim despite kind of relentlessly attacking. And do you happen to know what the Mavericks shot in the restricted area tonight?
I do. I got numbers? It right here. They were better, but not amazing. They were 18 of 28. So 64,
most of those were Gafford.
Yeah, 64%. League average is 66. They were great in the paint outside the restricted area. They were 10 of 17. So They were good overall in the paint. They were good.
Kyrie had a sweet little post move.
Yes, he was very good in the paint.
Woo!
Maybe that's what I should write. He's really good at post ups.
He had obviously Kyrie going left is one of those things where but even though academically my brain understands Kyrie's good with his left hand, every time he does something going left, I'm always like, holy shit, he's going left. And he did a little he was on the left block. So let's see here, I guess right block. And he goes left to the middle, and he does like a powerful kind of jump stop and pushes off and gets just enough separation to sink a little, probably like 8-footer. It's like, man, I really like watching him operate out of the post. Like, there's so much I would show youth players about what Kyrie does because, for all the razzle dazzle and stuff that he does, he's really just so fundamentally sound.
Dude, his footwork is awesome.
And the balance, and again, I knew it before he was a Mav, but like watching it night in and night out, you gain kind of a greater appreciation of it. And so, this is sort of how we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. So, because I want to finish this up and cut to break real quick, but the Mavericks just did a really excellent job offensively from all facets. The fourth quarter was pretty fun, where at one point, they start out the fourth quarter, and of course the Pelicans punch them in the mouth immediately. 2 giveaway turnovers. And you're like, what are you doing? The Mavericks go down are down 101 to 100. Kid calls a timeout. They come out, not force the ball, but they get the ball to Gafford a couple of times. And then PJ and Clay hit 3 threes between the 3 of them. The game's up to 10 points. It was 115 to 105. That was the deciding run of the game.
Yeah, from there they just kind of held the fort.
They held on. Of course, the Pelicans made, I think, like, depending on how you want to space it out, like at least two distinct runs. The Mavericks were up 133 to 123 with 1 minute and 21 seconds left. And of course, the Pelicans score 9 points, but the Mavericks scored 4 on free throws. They held on. And it's like, that's where it's like, there's an awful Clay turnover. Like there was, again, I don't want to harp on the negative stuff because we have enough negative stuff. And this was just a nice win.
And it was good to see Clay. I mean, now back-to-back games where he's had an impact from the 3-point line. So 7 3-pointers against the Wizards, 6 against the Pelicans, made some clutch ones in the fourth. Took some weird, like, he's not looking great on 2s. He made a really nice cut. The Mavericks actually ran a really good play and got him cutting through the middle of the lane. And he got the ball and it was a contested layup.
I think he got bumped out of his path and he was like, and he had kind of done the thing where he's like, I'm going to shoot this when he really shouldn't have.
So 2-pointers, not great, but man, his 3-point shooting is great. His last few games, his spacing is good. The team's finding him, which I know that was like your big complaint was like like not finding him in transition. I remember
he has gravity. Can we touch? Yeah. So. Okay, so the other thing that's helped the Mavericks is an increase in health. We didn't really even talk about Najee Marshall, but we'll talk about him when we come back because if I'm going to have to make an assumption about the Dallas Mavericks and their health, maybe they've been using DEXA scans. Maybe they've been going to Body Spec. Who knows? Body Spec is the official sponsor of Pod Maverick. If you go to the website that is in the show notes, that is on the YouTube video description. Body Spec is a company that provides a full body DEXA scan. If you're unfamiliar as to what that is, it is a scan which can tell you a lot about the state of your health for a really relatively inexpensive price. If you go to the website that's in the show notes and use the promo code PODMAVS45, that's all caps, PODMAVS45, you'll get $15 off. We've had numerous people that listen to the show reach out and let us know that they went and just to tell us how interesting it actually is. I mean, I can sell you the product all day long, but trust me, when I've had at least 4 listeners tell us that they've gone and done this, and it's a very good thing I think you should consider doing for your health. It's also a direct way to actually help Josh and I. If you want to do something for us, we are partnered with them, and any sort of if you go and help yourself, you're also directly helping us. If you want to reach out to me and talk to me about our experiences, Josh and I each had one. I'm going to give it, I'm on week 3 of really making better life choices, mainly in the food department. It's that sort of thing. I've also haven't had a drink in 3 weeks, and everybody's telling me how much better I should feel, and I don't feel any better. I miss alcohol. But still, it's good to start taking care of yourself, and Body Spec is a great way to start that path, just to kind of give you a baseline. Again, if you go to the link in the show notes and enter the promo code PODMAVS45, you'll get $15 off. Thank you so much for letting me ramble. We're going to insert some ads for Blue Wire, and then we will be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace is the all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting out or you're managing a growing brand, Squarespace makes it easy to create a beautiful website, engage with your audience, and sell anything from products to content to time, all in one place and all on your terms. Introducing Design Intelligence from Squarespace, combining 2 decades of industry-leading design expertise with cutting-edge AI technology to unlock your strongest creative potential. They've also got Squarespace Payments. That's the easiest way to manage your payments all in one place with Squarespace. Onboarding is fast and simple, and you can get started with just a few clicks and start receiving payments right away. You can also connect major social and multimedia accounts to your website with just a few clicks as icons, direct links, or embedded feeds, so you can build that visitor trust while updating content only where you need it. Head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, squarespace.com/bluewire to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.
This episode is brought to you by Love Hurts. Kiwi Kwan has had quite a career, from childhood roles in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and The Goonies to a recent Academy Award win for Everything Everywhere All at Once. But now Ki finally stars as a leading man in the film Love Hurts. Love Hurts is the perfect date night movie with its mix of over-the-top action, comedy, and a ton of heart. Love Hurts, only at theaters February 7th.
All right. If you haven't subscribed to the show, either through audio or video means, it's right there. It will do Josh and I a solid. We are, this has not been the season I think anybody wanted with coming off a finals run. And as a result, the interest in the Mavs is down. So those of you who are listening to the show, we very much appreciate your support and your participation. If I am going to be having a Mavs party after this, even if it's a short one, we can talk about some Mavs things and get on with our evening. Josh, what else should we talk about?
Probably need to talk about Daniel Gafford. We haven't really shouted him out specifically tonight, and he was awesome. 7 defensive rebounds for him, which career high. No, I'm kidding. But no, he was great. I know I'm being a dick, but he was great. He's been great basically since since himself called himself out after that Denver game where DeAndre Jordan kind of punked him. I'm seeing so much, fan reaction that's like, you guys better apologize to Daniel Gafford. I'm like, he himself said he was not playing well. Like, it's okay when a player's not playing well to say that he's not playing well, and then when he's playing better to be acknowledged he's playing better. Like, I understand that most of that reaction is to the fans that were like, got to trade him, bench him, like, the overreaction, but it's still
frustration.
Yeah. So I know that's where most of it comes from. But still, he's playing well. He was perfect 9 of 9, 5 offense. He was really bully balling the Pelicans bigs. The Pelicans are a team. They are not a big team. They start that rookie, Missy at center, who's pretty good actually.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
He's been pretty good for them, but he's rail thin a little bit. And then they play Daniel Tice as their backup, like just tailor-made guys for Gafford to kind of eat up. And then when Zion, the only time they're ever really big is when they have Murphy, Zion, and a big, and they went stretches where Murphy was basically like their power forward, and he's tall and lanky, but like girth, he's not very wide or doesn't weigh very much. So basically what I'm trying to say is the Mavericks, I think, had a size advantage for most of it, and they wore the Pelicans down on the glass. The Mavericks out-rebounded them 51-36. They haven't out-rebounded a team like that in a while since Luka's gone down, because that's kind of been low-key. Like, the Mavericks miss Luka's size and rebounding as much as they miss his offensive creation. So it was good to see, your starting front court, PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, combined for 26 rebounds, 9 offensive rebounds. That's pretty damn good. They flex their muscle in the paint and on the boards, which is one of the main reasons why they won.
It pleases me a great deal. Can
I ask you one thing to bounce off Gafford? I want to get your thoughts.
Yeah.
I remember in the preseason when Mark Stein said on the DLLS podcast that remember Kid opened training camp saying Derek Lively is the starter. He's the first team center. And then the season starts and Gafford opened the regular season as the starter. Do you remember when Mark Stein on the DLS podcast said like Gafford is probably starting because he does not like, he kind of insinuated that he doesn't like coming off the bench, and this is the Mavericks trying to placate him. Like, is that part of this turnaround? Because it coincides with him starting. if it does, what do you do? Because Lively is the future of the team. Like, I'm curious how they come to.
So
what
we
do they do
talked
here?
about this kind of at length before Lively went down. The Mavericks are going to have to move on from him at some point anyway. They're not going to pay him what I mean. I could be wrong.
They could.
I mean, do you think they like? Do you think
I know.
they? I don't really know what a reasonable it would be his third deal or his second deal.
They
How
could
old
be
is he?
third.
So it'd be his third deal. Like, are the Mavericks gonna pay? He's not an old guy. How old is he at this point?
He's like 26.
I mean, so a 27-year-old center. Let's be candid with. We got to be honest here, though, guys. Like around 28 to 32 is when a lot of centers start to fall off a cliff, particularly ones based in athleticism. It's you'd like to think that guys last till their 30s. It's just not the case. The outliers in the league really push things, and so it's like, would the Mavericks pay him 3 years, $48 million? You know, something like that, like a $16 million. I bet maybe the Mavericks would, but would that be enough for him? So again, let's back off that. That's not the point that you're asking. I think if the Mavericks don't think they can re-sign him to a real reasonable deal for what they need underneath the cap, I think they have to consider moving on from him this summer up until trade deadline season. And so, because you're right, Lively is the future. He's the future. You don't spend, you talked about this at length. Like for years, the Mavericks went budget at center and they got budget center results. So now that you have a big guy, like, do you over allocate a huge chunk of your resources to somebody like that when you have other guys you got to pay? That's the difficult thing.
Yeah, but I wonder if the Mavericks ideally would agree with that, but also how much is this Lively injury stuff spooking them into being like, okay, we don't want to pay Gafford, but if Lively is missing 10 to 25 games a season, what do we do? Like, I think that's going to be another part of it. But what do they do this season though? Like, let's take away the fact of what are they going to do with Gafford with his contract.
I mean,
Lively is going to be back when the playoffs start. Are they going to bring him off the bench? Like,
they're going to treat Lively with kid gloves. I think they have to, just because his borderline frailty matters. And I honestly don't think Lively even cares at this point. I don't remember who started how many games in the playoffs, but
Gafford was a starter in the playoffs,
and the Mavericks did just fine.
Yeah,
Lively ended up playing more key moments, I think.
Yeah, they might be at a point where they feel like locker room wise, they can maybe take advantage of Lively being such a good soldier right now.
I mean, and this is where kid's human element really comes into play, where his sort of ability to manage egos, for lack of a better descriptor, can really matter. Because if you're talking about saying, all right, guys, we have to go play 22 games to 25 games in the playoffs. It's, Lively comes back. I'm just saying, if he comes back, there's 8 to 10 games left in the regular season. Can we figure this out for the next 35 games? And again, guys, I'm assuming like the Mavericks go back to the finals. So I'm being a little hyperbolic here. The playoffs are a long time is the point. And every day the playoffs are at such a different intensity than the regular season grind. I think when you have, like, you really do at that point have all ships or have all rudders pointed in the same direction, like making sure that the ship is going the same direction. So I just can't imagine that anything like that would matter then, because it's like, again, Lively's going to be coming back off of bad injury, like a foot or an ankle injury, whatever in the hell it was. So
yeah, okay. The data is just so overwhelming with Lively in that starting group.
Yes,
but it's tough to ignore. But also, yeah, if
I had one of our listeners. Gosh dang it, I'm gonna have to go look him up just to give him the credit, because somebody, who was it? It was our guy. His name's Jordan. Jordan, I think, shot me a message where he's like, "Hey, do you think it's possible that the 20 pounds of muscle that Gafford put on was 20 pounds of just weight, and he's actually been getting in better shape as the season goes along and has thus been more athletic and more mobile?" I honestly don't know.
About who?
About Gafford, because Gafford talked a lot of shit about how he put on 20 pounds of muscle to be able to handle the rigors of the NBA, and then he came out and looked like he couldn't handle the rigors of the NBA. And so I sort of wonder if he's leaned down a bit. I don't know. I thought it was an interesting take.
Yeah. Might be, but also, I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that it seems like a light switch has gone off since he's been the starter again. If you take Mark Stein for his word, and I think most people should, because he obviously knows his stuff. So
right.
Just remember, he said that before the season started. It was like, they might want to start Gaff to placate him, and it's like,
right.
huh? Now, so
it's a good pick.
But he's playing awesome now. I've got to acknowledge, I acknowledged when he was playing poorly, and I think that's fair. It's also, so you got to turn around and acknowledge when he's playing great, and he's been great for them.
This is a fantastic comment from Drew, where he says Kirk loves him some medical conspiracy theories. I will simply say that over the course of NBA season, Dirk Nowitzki talked about how hard it is to keep weight on, and stuff like that. So it just seems reasonable that over the course of the year, these guys are like devouring calories or not able to keep up with the calorie intake. My dog is destroying something. Did you hear that?
No, I don't actually.
Hold on, filibuster.
Okay. All right. Well, what are we going to talk about next? We talked about Gafford. Thought Grimes was awesome. I don't know what it is about Quentin Grimes where it feels like for 5 to 8 minute stretches here. You're coming back, so I don't want to have to restart. So I'm going to tell you what I'm talking about. Everything okay first off, all?
Oh yeah, she just, the storm is the problem. She is not having this storm.
Oh yeah.
She's finding stuff and destroying it. It's like, give me attention. It's just the thing.
Yeah. I was talking about Grimes, and I was going to say, I don't know what it is about him where he gets like possessed by the spirit of like Clyde Drexler, or like, I don't know, like he just turns into the best bucket getter I've ever seen for like a 6-minute stretch, and he'll go scoreless for like a quarter, and then all of a sudden he has like 15 and before you even realize it. Like, and again, it's the weight, like he's hitting pull-up middies and driving the rim. Like, it's like, wait a minute, where was this in the first quarter? And I get it, like he's coming off the bench, so it's hard to be consistent with that kind of stuff. So it's just funny how he just I don't know what it is. He has a switch where he flips it and he turns into freaking God, Emperor, King of scoring the basketball for
like
everyone.
Lottery team. He would be like Jordan Poole, where he's just like, fuck it, shooting 30 times tonight. I enjoy Grimes. He's one of these guards where it's like you go through, you look at the Mavericks guard, like bench guards. You see Hardy, Grimes, Dinwiddie, and you look at and then soon enough, Dante Exum. You look at these 4 guys, and you're like, all 4 of you guys are gonna have a time where you matter, and can Kid find them at the right time? And so it's, again, we'll see where this goes. The one thing I will say is, like, these games are continually entertaining, even if they are a little bit depressing now and again. It's not like we're watching a team that's incapable of playing basketball. It just, every game is wildly different, where it's like, what's going to happen? Because like, you kind of know what Kyrie is going to do. You have an idea of what PJ Washington needs to do to be successful. But then after that, it's like, well, we're going to get a good Gafford game. Is Spencer Dinwiddie going to shoot the Mavericks in the foot repeatedly? Like, what's going to happen next? It's, I don't know. I get it if it's not for the casual fan, because Luke is not involved and Lively's no longer like with the team. But like, I don't know. This could have been a lot worse. Like, we've watched some bad teams as we've been doing this, like the 27, like I think it's 2016, 2017, maybe 17, 18 teams too.
Yeah, the 3 tanking years with Luke before.
There's just nothing to watch after about 30 games. You're like, all right, I know who these guys are. What are we going to write about? What are we going to do? At least with this team, I'm like, this is just weird shit happening every night, and you're getting a chance. Like, I would have loved to see more Omax minutes tonight, but I mean, he did play 15. He just was bad in those 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So yeah, it happens. It happens.
Yeah, his minutes are going to go down with Najee back too. So
yes, and Najee, congratulations on your Ozempic tour, because he looked like he's lost 15 pounds. Like, that dude looks skinny.
I don't know if maybe that's the flu that he's had for like 4 months. The Black Plague he's had. He's lost all that weight.
Man, I hope he's feeling better.
I know. Yeah, apparently, I think he said pregame he said he was feeling better. Like He was like, "How do you feel today?" He's like, "This is the best I felt in a while." So, like, good for him. Your Pepperdine boy, by the way. How are we not going to talk about Kessler Edwards?
Kessler Edwards,
your boy.
He's just making a case. And like when the Mavericks signed him in the preseason to the two-way deal, I never really had any idea how he would get minutes because there's a lot of guys, but he is just skilled enough on the offensive end, and his defense, I think, is quite good. I think it's quite good. I don't know how where he would even fit on this squad because
he won't play when everyone's healthy. I mean,
but there's some there. He's going to be a guy that sticks around the NBA, and I think we're going to be annoyed at some point that the Mavericks weren't able to find a real spot for him. But this is just this is what a contender team. This is what you hope from a contender team. When we talk about the Mavericks being deep, this is an element of that. It's just again 26 games without Luka Doncic. So,
right. So, yeah, that block he had was awesome. 2 assists. He's not making, he's not really getting a lot of shots, but yeah, like he's just he makes winning plays. It feels like
winning plays. Well, I think we're probably done. I'm going to start a Mavs party here for anybody who is interested in joining. Hang out here for anybody who is listening on the audio stream and you're like, how do I join the Mavs party? Well, you got to come to the YouTube channel because that's how we do these things. That's how we do these things live after games. Josh will be back on Friday. I won't be here. I don't think there's a very
you will not be
Josh
here.
Is not letting me be here.
No,
okay, fine.
Lock your computer.
As we hope that Tim Hardaway doesn't score 37,000 points against the Mavericks.
Okay, but, if he makes a buzzer beater and scores 45, maybe
you're gonna let me on.
Maybe,
yeah.
Then
well, it's a 5-game road trip. The Mavericks got started in a good way. This is just the up until All-Star break. This is a grind it out. Just you take the wins where you can get them. The Mavericks, I think, have now won 4 of their last 7. Which is pretty interesting considering how dark things got for a while. So we'll take it. Hang out here for Mavs Party. Those of you who are live, everybody on the audio stream, look for that in the podcast feed sometime tomorrow. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, guys. We will talk to everyone soon, and go Mavs.